What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, today's video, we are going to be talking about one of my favorite mutant characters, Frenzy. A character who has been around for a really long time, but only in recent memory has started to get a little bit of respect put on her name. But we are going to talk about this character, we're going to break her down, we're going to talk about her powers, roughly everything there is to know about her, and more. But first, let's hit that intro.
Word to wise, grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer the lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple eyes. You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Frenzy, human name Joanna Cargill, first appeared in X Factor number 4 in 1986 and was created by Bob Layton and Keith Pollard. Frenzy was the daughter of an abusive father, a man who not only verbally abused her, but abused her physically as well. When her brother died in an accident, her father took it out on her, and in self-defense, she tried to punch him. But due to being a mutant, her X gene activated at that precise moment due to the extreme stress, and she punched through his chest, killing him. This led to her running away from home and going down the road of being a mercenary for hire and X-Men villain ever since. Frenzy's mutant power is super strength. She can lift upwards of 10 tons with ease, and the upper limit of her strength has never really been fully explored before, but it is thought that she can lift well beyond that. Due to her increased strength, her muscles are developed beyond that of a normal human being, granting her superhuman stamina. As a result of that, her muscles produce far less fatigue toxins than a normal human being, allowing her to overexert herself for hours on end without becoming tired as a result. Her strength and increased stamina allow her to run at superhuman speeds as well. She can clock in at up to 100 kilometers per hour. She also possesses superhuman agility and reflexes, granting her impeccable coordination and balance beyond that of a normal human being, and her reaction time is uncanny. Frenzy's ace in the hole, however, is her superhuman durability. Not only is she incredibly tough and durable, but her skin is particularly dense as well, and is considered to be as hard as steel. This makes her effectively invulnerable, even to things like high caliber bullets and bladed weaponry. Things made of conventional metals cannot pierce her flesh. Even blunt force trauma, even at extreme levels of impact, cannot break her skin, even from superhumanly strong beings. This also applies to falling from extreme heights, even surviving a steep fall from a helicopter after Domino dropped her from it. She's even immune to temperature extremes, whether hot or cold. Even radiation seems to have little effect on her, if any. And high-impact energy weapons and blasts cannot puncture her skin, even from characters like Cyclops, whose optic blasts are incredibly powerful. The only substance known to man that has been able to damage her skin in any meaningful way is adamantium. Her eyes are also a weak point on her body because it lacks the same level of protection that her skin does, so sudden bright flashes of light, like that of a flashbang or a laser, would in fact blind her. In fact, this was used against her by Magneto once, and the laser actually caused her brain damage that would later be fixed by Charles Xavier. Frenzy is a very deadly hand-to-hand fighter. She's been rumored to be trained in various martial arts techniques, but she's typically seen using street fighting tactics. Her prowess in combat is noted further by her ability to take down the Power Scroll, Pybok, in one-on-one hand-to-hand combat and only barely breaking a sweat. Joanna has some interesting relationships with a couple of mainstay X-Men characters. She's gone toe-to-toe with the likes of Gambit in the past, and as one may suspect, since they've both been on opposite or similar sides from time to time, they have a very love-hate relationship with one another. She also has a somewhat interesting relationship with stalwart X-Men leader Cyclops. They have been enemies more times than they can count, but around the time of Age of X, an alternate timeline created by one of Legion's more unscrupulous personalities and set on Earth 11326, where mutants are driven to the brink of extinction, Joanna and Cyclops were married. This became a point of contention for the two once the timeline was reset, because Joanna still remembered everything that happened on Earth 11326, but Cyclops didn't. And while she still retained her feelings for for him and still loved him, he had no feelings for her. This even led to her leaving Scott's X-Men team and siding with Wolverine during the Schism event because she was hurt by seeing Cyclops and Emma Frost together. Frenzy would even later on during the events of Avengers vs. X-Men go behind Cyclops' back and tell the Stepford Cuckoos not to rewrite the memories of some Nairobian refugees they saved because they were being persecuted and tortured by militia groups. Frenzy did this because she felt that retaining these painful memories would make them stronger in the long run and give them the strength to endure if anyone ever tried to subjugate them again. This is something she has direct experience with in more ways than one, since when offered to have her memories of Age of X removed, she turned it down, despite how much pain it caused her. She also retained the painful memories of her childhood, all things she feels made her a stronger person in the end. Frenzy has worked with various organizations and teams, mostly on the more villainous side of things, and though many people remember her as being a follower of Magneto, few actually remember she actually got her start with Apocalypse. She's been on a multitude of different teams, like both Magneto's, Fabian Cortez's, and Exodus's versions of the Acolytes, Apocalypse's Alliance of Evil, the all-women utopian society known as the Femizons, Magneto's Genosian cabinet and its united military, as well as being Genosha's representative and ambassador to the United Nations. She was once a part of the Royal Inhuman diplomatic mission, but has since disaffiliated herself with them, and she's also loosely been a member of the X-Men in the past, not just during Age of X, but also in the main Earth 616 timeline. She's currently working as the mutant ambassador to the rest of the universe for SWORD, now that it's under the control of Krakoa. Frenzy found acceptance for the first time working with Magneto, who some would say Joanna idolized and looked up to, and has had a major impact on her life, hence why she joined the Acolytes and remained with them through most of their changes in leadership. Even when Fabian Cortez and Exodus had their stints at leader, her following was largely predicated on getting Magneto back. She's been so ride or die for Magneto that when he took over Genosha, he made her his right-hand woman. Even when the US government captured her, she refused to drop dimes on Magneto, no matter what tactics they used on her to try and get information on Genosha. During her time with the second iteration of the Acolytes, she dropped her code name of Frenzy temporarily and chose to simply go by her last name of Cargill. Now, earlier I mentioned she was loosely a member of the X-Men. This was due to mind control via Jean Grey when she used her powers to force Joanna into joining them when the X-Men saved her from imprisonment by the US government when they were holding her prisoner trying to get information on Magneto. This is likely the reasoning behind Cargill's personality change during this stint, where her personality seemed from being less assertive and having less of a take no prisoners mentality to a more understated and somewhat humorous or maybe even borderline campy version of herself. Between being forced to join her enemies and by proxy also being forced to face off against her mentor, she immediately left the team the moment her mind control from Jean was lifted. An interesting side point to this is that Frenzy is one of the few mutants who kept her powers after M-Day, the decimation caused by Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch, when she said no more mutants, and the number of mutants that barely ranked in the thousands dwindled to barely being 100. Frenzy did at one point join the Inhumans after the Terrigenesis attack on mutants, not because she felt they did the right thing, but because both herself and the Inhuman Crystal were working together to save mutants harmed by Terrigenesis. After an absence from comics, Frenzy did show up for the first time in a while during the storyline X-Men Disassembled as one of the many mutants Jean Grey summoned when she brought in every available mutant known to man to defeat Nate Grey when he possessed Legion. She was also one of the first mutants who answered Xavier and Magneto's call to their former enemies to join Krakoa. Another interesting little sidebar about Frenzy is that originally she was drawn to have white patches of hair around her temples, and over the years that has since gone away, and as of SWORD #1 in 2020, this is nowhere to be found. Though one could argue that she also shaves that part of her hair, so maybe that's why we don't see it. I do have a vaguest of memory of seeing a blink and you'll miss it cameo of her in the 90s X-Men animated series, but unfortunately, I haven't taken the time to go through all of those episodes to see if I can find it, but I feel like if one looks hard enough, you'll probably find her. That said, normally when I do these types of videos, I like to pick someone who I think could play this character on the big or small screen, and the first name that came to mind was Brandi Evans, who has had stints on both the New Edition story TV series and the Bobby Brown story TV series, but more recently, many may actually know her for her stint as the character Mercedes on the Starz television series P-Valley. I feel like Brandi Evans has that same type of like killer instinct, that very same type of like take no shit attitude that a character like Frenzy would very likely have, a certain sass and a little bit of swagger that we typically see in the character Frenzy. I feel like Brandi Evans could really bring that to life playing that particular character.
Memphis, 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 Memphis. Nothing but Memphis. Everywhere we go, it's Memphis. Memphis, Tennessee, the beautiful land in the world.
Now, also, normally when I do this, I like to give you a little recommended reading. This one is going to be a little difficult because honestly, Frenzy doesn't feature a lot in very many comics, and usually when she is there, she's never really the main portion of those comics. She's just kind of there. But I will say, if you want to get to know the character a little better, places I think where you would probably get the best mileage are going to be with her first appearance in X Factor Volume 1, number 4 through 6. I would also recommend checking out Magneto, Dark Seduction, number 1 through 4. I also recommend checking out X-Men, number 42 through 44. And even though your mileage with this story arc may vary as well, I also say check out X-Men Legacy Volume 1, issues number 208 through 210, issue number 225, and then issues number 248 through 268, and then finally, issue number 275. I also recommend checking out the Sword series by Al Ewing. Granted, the series has only just started, and I think by the time this video comes out, we will have only had 2 issues of this comic, but it seems like Al Ewing is planning to do some really interesting things with the character by putting her in a very interesting, and I would even say a prominent role on the roster of Sword, so definitely worth a look if you want to get more Frenzy. That said, I really like this character. I kind of wish that they would have done more with her throughout the years, and even though, yeah, she has popped up a lot, it just feels like she never really gets a true moment to shine. I feel like that's going to change now, but I am glad to see that, especially with everything going on with the X-Men right now, how they don't really have very many mutant villains. I'm very glad to see that Frenzy finally is getting that opportunity, kind of like characters like Juggernaut is getting right now, where you have this character who's kind of always been a villain, but they just seem like they would be so much more interesting if they were on the good side for a change. I feel like Frenzy is that same type of character, even though Juggernaut is not a mutant and Frenzy is. I'm just saying in terms of character, I feel like Frenzy, if given the chance, and technically now she is, given the chance, I feel like she could be a much more popular character than, what Marvel has given her an opportunity to be. I know a lot of people like to think of Storm as like the stalwart and like mainstay black character on the team, but for me, as much as I love Storm, I just always felt that if Frenzy was ever given the same opportunities and not just used solely as a bad guy, maybe given this opportunity that she has now to prove herself being on the good guy side again, if she'd have gotten that much earlier in her publication history, I actually think that people would have rallied around Frenzy just as much as they rally around characters like Storm and Bishop. But anyways, that's a coulda, woulda, shoulda, and it's neither here nor there. Point of the matter is, if you like this video, Hulk smash that like button and share it all over the internet so you can let all your friends know how you leveled up your comic book big brain in regards to the X-Men character Frenzy. Also, let me know what you think about Frenzy. Have you always known about her, or are you today years old finding out about her? Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.